Finally, we have an update on the Subnautica 2 situation, and Krafton is hitting back pretty hard, it looks like. If you don't know what the Subnautica 2 situation is, also, here's a quick summary. The full conversation is probably like 2 hours plus at this point, but the short summary I'm gonna give you is relatively everything, but a little less detail. So here's what's happening. Subnautica 1 happens, it's a giant success. And Subnautica gets bought out by Krafton. The original CEOs and developers from the original game stay to work on Subnautica 2. The CEOs of that game get a massive payout for their stuff, and they are offered a bonus if they reach a certain milestone in sales and revenue, which Krafton obviously has absolutely not even the slightest want to pay them out. That is a thing that people mistake. They obviously don't want to pay it out. And here's where everything gets tricky. I'm not currently assigning any blame because, in my opinion, both sides are pretty bad. Okay, listen. I'm not defending the multi-billion-dollar corporation, obviously, but I'm also not defending the multi-million-dollar CEOs. Both of these sides have extremely valid reasons and justifications to try and completely destroy the other side in a legal sense and, their character in the eyes of the public. And that's what I think the original CEOs are currently trying to do. They sued Krafton because Krafton doesn't want to pay out their bonuses. And they're saying that Krafton is trying to sabotage them. Krafton does not want Subnautica 2 to come out, and otherwise they are going to reach their milestone. But Krafton clapped back and said, hey, here's a list of things that we expected in Subnautica 2. And what currently is in Subnautica 2 is roughly 1/3 of the things that they wanted. Because the CEOs are extremely lazy people. One of them is literally doing some kind of AI Christmas movie in summer. Go figure. But I mean, it's the rich, so what exactly can we do? And the whole thing is an absolute shitfest. And who is actually to blame? I'm pretty sure it's both sides, because the CEOs. Listen, they might say that they care about the bonuses for their workers to be paid. 500 million. Bro, those CEOs are taking 90% of the pot. Yeah, they don't really care too much about the actual workers. That's as much as I'm gonna say there. And needless to say, Krafton doesn't care about them either, so they don't want to give out the bonus.
So we have ourselves an update to the Krafton Unknown Worlds lawsuit situation that we talked about not even that long ago. It was almost like there was news about Krafton and Unknown Worlds coming out almost every single day. And then it kind of went quiet after the lawsuit became official, and it's public record. You could go check it out. I've done a video on it. I've linked it before. You could go check it out. But Unknown Worlds has, officially filed a lawsuit against Krafton, but now Krafton is firing back against Unknown Worlds. And
Yeah. And the Subnautica case is very unique in the sense that typically, when something like this happens, the companies stay quiet and the people on the other side stay quiet because if the company says anything, that pretty much instantaneously makes them very liable. And if the CEOs say something, that also pretty much instantaneously makes them liable. So this is why in situations like this, you never really hear about them because everyone's just staying quiet and everything is being resolved behind closed doors. But in this case, they very much are very, very, very not quiet. Both sides now. Again, Krafton just clapped back. Again, and these are extremely liable, very, very defamatory statements that each side is putting against the other. So this can only end in a lawsuit, effectively, and that is what's happening. Personally, my theory, what's currently happening is that the CEOs want their 500 million payout because again, they are the super recipients of that shit, and they are lying about the fact that they want to share that with their devs. That's just a fugazi, so people treat them better. Again, they're completely lying. They have no history of doing that. The contracts make no sense. Nothing makes sense in that statement. They just want to look good. I think the CEOs are currently doing this ex CEOs, I should say, because they want craft. Because this is damaging for Krafton. There's a lot. There's gonna be a lot of people right down in the comments saying that, oh, this is Krafton's at fault. Why are you even remotely protecting them? It's too early to know, dude, guys. Come on, it's too early to know. And this is, I think, the plan of the CEOs to make Krafton look even worse. Now, again, Krafton is in no way the good guys here. They don't want to pay out any bonuses, don't get me wrong. But the CEOs are just using their workers as pretty much collateral here.
Saying that Subnautica 2 was going to be at risk of causing irreversible harm to the entire franchise, like Kerbal Space Program 2. So they're trying to claim that if the game were to have come out under the leadership that used to be there, that the game would have been so bad that it would have been irreversible harm to the entire franchise. That's a pretty big statement to make, in my opinion.
Not really. We actually do have a history of this statement, pretty kind of ironically being proven almost right already. Because keep in mind, Subnautica, great game. Subnautica Below Zero, vote fucking slop. So, and Subnautica Below Zero was pretty much made by the CEOs and whatnot with a lot of their oversight and stuff. So we already know that these guys are kind of bad at their job. The Subnautica one was most likely just kind of lucky, honestly.
So I'm very curious to see what they're going to say. Krafton says that the former heads of Unknown Worlds were fired with cause to keep them from permanently damaging Unknown Worlds' most valuable IP. They have officially filed a response to the lawsuit brought against it by the former heads of Subnautica Studio Unknown Worlds, accusing them of almost immediately abandoning their responsibilities following Krafton's acquisition of the studio, despite repeated efforts to keep them on board. The publisher is requesting an outright dismissal of the lawsuit filed against it, with all the claims for relief, along with legal fees and other costs as well. The dispute between Krafton and the former leadership of Unknown Worlds co-founders Charlie Cleveland and Max McGuire and studio CEO Ted Gill came to public light in July when the trio were dismissed, but Krafton's filing points to problems going back to almost the very beginning. Cleveland, McGuire, and Gill were presented to Krafton as the visionaries behind Unknown World's success and the key to its future. It says, and so Krafton
Unknown Worlds is the company name that made Subnautica.
put a lot of money into keeping them around. $500 million to buy the studio, plus up to $250 million more if they led to the successful development of Subnautica 2 and other games and hit an ambitious revenue target in 4 consecutive quarters before June of 2026. Now, we've covered all of this extensively. We've covered the $500 million buyout of the studio. We've covered the $250 million bonus to the 3 main developers that were fired.
Oh wait, is it now like official money statement? Was it at 500 million? What the hell? Has something changed and I missed it? Or am I just misremembering the numbers? But anyway, I remember the split percent, boys. 90% goes to the top 3 CEOs. It's actually not even an even 30-30-30 split between them. It's like a 40-40-10 split or something like that between the 3 CEOs. One of them gets shafted. Well, a couple of 10 million. Still a lot of money, but they still get kind of shafted.
We've covered all of this stuff, and there's been a lot of back and forth between what the developers are saying, what Krafton is saying, what the community thinks of it. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, the people that are really losing here is the community of Subnautica, because their game is in
True.
turmoil, because now Krafton and Unknown Worlds are in a fucking lawsuit, and it's just one massive mess. I think that's really what's going.
Correction. Krafton and Unknown Worlds are not in a lawsuit. No. Krafton owns Unknown Worlds. The CEOs, the ex-CEOs now, they have a lawsuit against Krafton. The development of Subnautica 2 technically could actually not be even impacted if we choose to believe the fact that the ex-CEOs didn't really do a lot there, but were making AI Christmas movies in summer.
To affect this game the most. But in any case, that payout is the crux of the beef. The former Unknown World bosses accused Krafton of delaying Subnautica 2 in order to avoid the payout. But Krafton says that the game simply wasn't ready for release, even in early access.
Yeah. And by the way, the fact that the CEO is not clearing the air here is, I think, very telling. Because if you watch my old videos about this, there's one thing that I go over. I actually have an overview of this situation where we go through the timeline of what's happening. It's pretty funny. So there is this document that Krafton put out. We have no real confirmation still until this point. I think that that it's like 100% legit. But again, uh, Krafton was expecting like three times more of Subnautica 2 than is currently ready, and they just want to push it out in early access out the door because they want to get that. But not even, but roughly 1/3 of the stuff that Krafton wanted to be in Subnautica 2 is only currently finished. Which is, well, it's you get only 1/3 of the game that Krafton wants, so it's kind of reasonable for Krafton to say, no, you're not releasing this. Okay, early access, non-early access, now there's a giant company with a lot of money behind it, and you're no longer like an indie studio. You have no reason to release such a shabby early access. That's effectively what Krafton is saying here. And they want to delay it. Because by the file, when you compare it to what's actually in there, it's only 1/3 of the thing. And I don't know about you, but if my boss wants me to do X and I only do 1/3 of that, I mean, that's probably really, really bad. So Krafton is delaying the launch until more stuff is done, and it could be extremely easy to prove who is actually in the right here. As long as that thing, by the way, stays solid and no one disproves it. I actually side more with Krafton than the devs because again, if you're gonna deliver me only 1/3 of the thing that you were supposed to deliver, fuck you. That is just nothing. That is. Are you even trying? Do you? And you want a fucking bonus? Fuck you. That's stupid. But the original CEOs have not disproven currently the fact that they are so under delivering. So if Krafton is lying about how much they need to deliver or whatever, then I'm on the side of the CEOs. But the CEOs are not disproving that part. They're completely ignoring talking about it.
In large part because the studio heads let their attention wander to other things following their big paydays. Krafton went deeper into those claims in today's filing. Oh boy, it's about to get interesting.
Hell yeah.
So it says, having sold the company, Cleveland and McGuire, who pocketed almost $200 million apiece from the sale, and Gill, who received $60 million, quickly lost interest in development of Subnautica 2. Well, I can kind of believe that. This is the reason why there are really not that many creator contracts. Do you guys realize that creator contracts are just almost non-existent now? Kind of like how Kick. Remember how Kick used to give big creator contracts to big people who were streaming exclusively there? They don't really do that anymore, right? A lot of companies don't really do that anymore, and that's because they realize that what you're giving them is not a contract. What you're giving them is a retirement plan. That's what you're giving them. You're promised.
Well, yeah, it's the same as a retirement plan. Yes. If you're a streamer and someone gives you $100 million deal, and the deal is literally just keep streaming on the platform, bruh, I'm just putting in the stream and I'm just relaxing. I'm not trying. I already have the 100 mil in my bank account. What are you talking about, bruh? So yeah, at the end of the time period of stupid contracts like this is pretty much probably over.
Them $100 million to stream on your platform exclusively for like a couple of years, you just retired them. You gave them a massive payday, and they're not going to try nowhere near as hard. Do you think a streamer is going to try anywhere near as hard after receiving $100 million, $200 million payday? Of course not. Probably the same thing here with the developers. After getting $200 million a piece, you think they're going to try anywhere near as hard? Probably not, right? But in any case, Krafton's former response to the lawyer states that Cleveland and McGuire abandoned their roles as studio-wide game director and technical director to focus on their personal projects and quit making games for Unknown Worlds entirely. And Gill, who remained focused on leveraging his operational control to maximize the earnout payment rather than develop a successful game. So again, their entire
Based, smart.
nonsense, their entire thing has just completely been thrown to the side, all because they made a massive payday, right? So by July of this is a pretty good response so far by Krafton, as much as I hate to admit it. By July of 2023, Cleveland and McGuire's absence at Unknown Worlds had begun to impact the Subnautica 2 development.
Also, by the way, I don't think this is also confirmed because there's a lot of things that are not confirmed, but I'm talking about the stuff that seems to be the most reasonably to actually be true. And that is the fact that also current devs, now admittedly anonymously, so again, take it with a grain of salt, I guess, but current devs supposedly anonymously have come out and said, oh yeah, these CEOs, they completely just effed off when it came to Subnautica 2. They were just not there. They didn't care. They didn't do a lot.
Development team. The development director at Unknown Worlds told Gil that folks think Max and Charlie are checked out as studio heads and are confused as to why. In reality, Cleveland had abandoned video games to pursue filmmaking, a process he documented publicly on his website and social media. That's not good. That's
Yep.
not good because that's going to lead evidence to Krafton's claims. If he documented anything other than Subnautica 2 development, that's going to lead evidence to their claims. For his part, McGuire started that working on initiatives that fall outside of the company's main development activities, stating that his priority was to try something that feels personally meaningful to me. Gil remained as Unknown World's president and CEO, but without the original creators, Subnautica 2 suffered serial developmental delays under his watch. Then Krafton claims that problems with Subnautica 2 came to light in an internal assessment in March of 2024. But rather than getting down to work, studio leadership blamed others and overhauled the team. You know what's interesting? What's interesting for me is that I wonder what the team thinks.
You know what's interesting to me? When they say studio leadership, what do they mean? The CEOs at Krafton or the CEOs at Unchecked or whatever their studio is called, aka the people at Subnautica 2? Which one does this refer to? I'm not 100% sure actually from this sentence.
Right? Nobody's heard anything from the team. Nobody's heard anything from the people that are working on the game every day. Nobody's heard a single thing. I don't think any of them have spoken out. They probably can't because
There is one guy, but again, anonymous, so we don't know.
of the lawsuit. So I wonder who they think is right in this situation. Because according to Krafton, the team was thinking that these leaders were checked out. They were thinking that the leaders were not there in their best favor. So I wonder who they really think is right in this situation. But I guess we're never going to get the answer so long as the lawsuit is going on. But again, Krafton claims that the problems they came to light in 2024.
By the way, this is one of the most interesting things that has happened this year, in my opinion. Because, to put it in the most simple terms, one party is lying here no matter what, and they're fucked. Someone is lying here. Both cannot be true at the same time. They are 100% mutually exclusive things. So, someone's getting an extremely, extremely short end of the stick when all of this comes to pass. And I'm really wondering who, because this is going to be a goddamn bloodbath.
In March. And apparently, the leadership blamed others and overhauled the entire team and continued to reduce the scope of the game. As the release continued to be delayed, by the spring of 25, Krafton felt the game was still.
Okay, let me explain this, okay? Let me explain this. If the ex-CEOs of Subnautica 2 win against Krafton, if they don't settle, they're probably gonna settle. But if they don't settle and this does go to court, the ex-CEOs winning against Krafton is effectively making Krafton defunct. Krafton will not have enough money to sustain business operations at their usual level. They're going to start cutting costs. They're going to start closing studios. They're going to do a lot of things. They're going to start selling assets. So, effectively, it's not going to be a true death of Krafton. They're still going to be way better than some kind of BioWare or Ruby slop. But it's going to be a massive hit for Krafton. It's gonna push them back like, I don't know, years. This shit is gonna ruin them. And if Subnautica 2 in general is not successful, plus that, oh boy, they're gonna be in extremely hot water. Okay? Close to an Ubisoft situation. And if Krafton wins, well, congratulations, ex-CEOs. Now you're once again fucking poor. It is what it is. Your lives are fucked. So again, the end situation here, because Krafton's gonna go after damages. If Krafton wins, Krafton gets the damage amount, and this whole situation has blown up on YouTube. There's like a lot of people talking about it. I'm talking about it. A lot of people know about this, and this has definitely impacted sales already for the future of Subnautica. So those CEOs, everything they got for selling their studio, they're gonna give back to Krafton. That's how it's gonna go. One side is getting very, very decimated.
Far from ready for early access, the suit said CEO Chang Han Kim worried that Subnautica 2 would end up like Kerbal Space Program 2, causing irreversible harm to the entire IP franchise. As Unknown World's sole stockholder, Krafton had invested $500 million.
Oh, by the way, in my watch list, there's like a Kerbal Space Program video that's like a month old at this point that I wanted to watch because Kerbal Space Program is pretty fucked.
In the success of not only Subnautica 2, but also Subnautica 3 and Subnautica 4 and any other future Subnautica franchise product. The filing states to prevent the key employees from permanently damaging Unknown World's most valuable IP, the company itself and its goodwill with its fans, and following conduct by the key employees that plainly gave rise to termination for cause, Krafton terminated the key employees consistent with the terms of both their employment agreements and the EPA.
Now, about the employee agreements and blah blah blah, it's really hard to say what's actually happening. We don't know. We don't know what their contracts are.
Bulk of the response is a line-by-line answer to the lawsuit filed by the former Unknown World bosses, which gets into painfully tedious detail, regardless of very first sentence in the very first paragraph of the lawsuit. For instance, Krafton acknowledges acquiring Unknown World, but denies the claim that the studio was wildly successful. It all very loyally, but in other words, but the net result is a legally comprehensive reinstating of the defense Krafton has put up all along. Subnautica 2 is not ready for the light of day.
By the way, I actually agree with this. Subnautica, very successful game, but not even close to wildly successful. Ark is wildly successful. And I'm talking about the dinosaur survival game. That is considered wildly successful. Franchises like Diablo are considered wildly successful, even though they're trash. And stuff like that. That is considered wildly successful. Clair Obscure Expedition 33, wildly successful. Baldur's Gate 3, wildly successful. Subnautica, pretty successful. Not even close to wildly successful, though.
And the former Unknown Worlds bosses were willing to put it.
Now, don't let that, by the way, detract from the game. It's still really, really good, and a lot of people love it. But again, there is actually a very, very concrete definition for a wildly successful.
Out anyway, just to collect a paycheck. So, again, this entire thing, I don't know which way to go. I got to be honest with you. This whole thing here really does kind of push more towards Krafton and what they're saying. I'm not going to say that the company is absolvent of any wrongdoing.
No, obviously not. That would be stupid. Not completely right on this. No one's really the good guy, but the CEOs are definitely trying to play a game here. Anyway, that was Hypnotic 10 out of 10. Bye.